If a club's farm system rankings are any indication of how the major league team is going to perform, then watch out. 2022 Cubs. Locked On Cubs Tuesday edition rolls now.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs. Good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. I'm your host, Andrew Bellison. Welcome into Locked On Cubs. Great to have you with us. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Hope you enjoyed the heck out of the Rams Super Bowl victory. I want to thank you first and foremost for making Locked On Cubs your first listen each and every morning. It means the world to me. This is your show. You make it go. I'm along for the ride, and it's been such a blast hosting for you. If you don't know me, I was the public address announcer at Wrigley Field for 10 years for the Chicago Cubs and now part of the Locked On Podcast Network. So excited to be with you. Engage with us on social media at Chicago Cubs PA, at Locked On Cubs. Love to engage with you guys, talk baseball, talk Cubs, go back and forth. It is so fun to bounce opinions off one another. So please talk to me on the Twitter machine. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Awesome stuff up for you today to start the week. Continue to roll through our 2022 Zips roster projection for the Cubs. That's their 26-man plus individual stats, which I love to look at as well. Also, you think you know your favorite team, the Cubs, but I bet you didn't know this weird Cubs fact that I'm going to throw your way a little bit later. But first, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Keith Law's minor league rankings are out. And it's always fun to take a look at this because I'm a firm believer when it comes to this, that you essentially can't judge the house unless you inspect the foundation first, right? And we know that after that Cubs World Series run, the minor league system got to be a little thin because parts were dealt away to supplement the major league roster and try to continue playoff runs every year. That's just kind of how it goes. Here's what's kind of neat. Cubs are currently ranked 16th overall in the league by Keith Law in terms of their farm system. So what do you say? Well, middle of the pack, right? Yes, but there's other reason to be really pumped about this. And to me, that's the jump that they made from 2021's rankings. So last year, talking about being depleted from those playoff runs, they were ranked just 26th in the league. So really essentially bottom of the barrel until Jed Hoyer started to initiate this new wave. And now Carter Hawkins obviously taking the reins as general manager, working with Jed. So the core dealt away, and we've talked about this over and over, but the call that came back for that core last year was substantial. And we've hit on that. Some of the prospects that came back from the Mets and the Yankees for Rizzo, even the Darvish deal, which was the first of all of this, from the Padres. So the return for those players knocked the Cubs overall ranking up 10 slots to 16. So while still middle of the pack, this is a big deal. Here's what Keith Law mentions in regards to his ranking. Cubs just have one prospect in the top 100 overall. Big deal? No, not really. He says, and I quote, they have a large group of guys who are just bubbling under, nearly all of whom were in the complex league last year, but should spend 2022 in full season ball. That's a big point to make. I will say this. A lot of that has to do with the injuries to the prospects that we have discussed, especially the arms. They missed tons of time in the last year and a half. And a new program that we talked about here on Locked On Cubs has been laid out by Carter Hawkins from top to bottom, organization-wide, to combat these injuries. That's huge, obviously. You got to get these young studs on the field. You need them to play, to develop. So, to my point, the sell-off at last year's trade deadline netted 4 of their top 10 prospects right now. Let me say that again. You were mad the core got dealt away. Now it's time to reap the benefits of the core of the return haul in terms of prospects. 4 of the 10 top prospects in the organization now are from the sell-off at last year's deadline, along with one more they added the previous winter, and at least 3 other prospects who project to have some decent major league value. So the farm system is bolstered, to say the least. Their 2021 draft, according to Keith Law, showed a different philosophy, which is true, and looks to be their most productive since they were drafting in the single digits. Okay, so only one top 100 prospect for Law in his rankings, which is a tough grade, albeit unimportant. But that top 100 prospect is a big deal. You've heard of him, I know. His name is Brennen Davis, 6'4", 210-pound outfielder, previously ranked number 51. So he slid up several slots as well heading into 2022. Here's the book on Davis, and I cannot wait to see this guy play. You're going to love him. Davis is an outstanding athlete, starting baseball and basketball in high school, so 2-sporter. And this year, some of that projection he had as an amateur showed up in games as he knocked 19 home runs across 3 levels last year, finishing in AAA as a 21-year-old. Just 20, he'll be 22 when this season starts. He's gotten quite a bit stronger since the pandemic wiped out the 2020 season. And according to Law, now he's driving the ball to all fields with a very balanced swing that generates great power from both upper and lower halves. Here's the good news, too. Even though he bulked, he still runs well, may have lost a little bit of speed. Greater chance, according to Law, that he's going to end up in right field, which is where he played more a year ago, although he could be an average center fielder, according to Law, still because of his athleticism, also considering the Cubs really don't have a go-to center field option per se. So there's that option too. The power and on-base percentage skill is what really sets Davis apart. And it says, according to Keith Law, he's going to look like a very different player than anyone saw when he was just a skinny 18-year-old. 30 home run potential upside. I mean, this is a big, big deal to be super pumped about one guy. I mean, now is the chance we might see him this year. Other groups had him projected to possibly be up at some point this year. So obviously we're probably going to see him start the year in Iowa and at some point probably with the Major League Club in 2022. So there you go. Overall, future very, very bright. Keith Law speaks very highly of the Cubs farm system, and this is something that just really made a major transformation over the last year, how quickly that happened. And now the bitterness of that core being dealt away seemingly subsides a little bit when you see the talent and the talent pool that has come back for those guys. So future is very bright. Locked On Cubs is going to roll here shortly. We're going to continue our look at our 2022 Zips roster projections and individual stats for some of these guys as well. Cubs outfield on the docket here today. Before we get to that, I want to remind you that Built Bar is the way to go. If you're trying to cut some lbs, get healthier, and still want to eat food that tastes good. Have you tried the new Built Bar Puffs? Puffs are a fan favorite. They have awesome flavors. Yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie, high protein. Replace your junky, sugary, nasty candy bars with a Built Bar. Most bars contain just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Awesome flavors. Mint brownie, coconut almond, coconut. New for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. Do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 at Built.com for 15% off your order. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models of automobiles out there, it is almost impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you ever need. So, do you want to save some time and money? Then use Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a dealership? Rock Auto is a family business, first and foremost. They serve do-it-yourselfers, and they've been doing so for the last 20-plus years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every single customer. They have everything you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and now even carpet. Go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Zips projections 2022 Cubs roster coming up now. This is Locked On Cubs. Cubs fans, welcome back into Locked On Cubs. I am your host, Andrew Bellison. Thank you for being with us here this morning. Happy Tuesday to you. Hope you had an awesome weekend. I had a great weekend. Thank you for asking. Want to remind you to please engage with us on social media. Love to talk to you guys on Twitter at Chicago Cubs PA, at Locked On Cubs for the show. Let's be respectful of each other. I want to hear your opinions, your thoughts. Are you ticked? Lockout, still locked, spring training, delay. Stinks. This was the week, right? Spring kind of in the air. You can start to smell it. You know, pitchers and catchers report, no dice. It's frustrating, man. I know. We'll have more updates on the CBA as the week progresses. So don't worry. Tune into Locked On Cubs for that. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every morning. You guys mean the world to me. I love you, Locked On fam. Thank you. So I said it before, and I'll say it again. It's always fun to look at projections. Anybody can have an opinion. Anybody can say what they think is going to happen. I fail to put a ton of stock in them. It's just so hard to, especially in baseball, in my opinion, go ahead and project a 162 game season result, whether it be a team number, a win total, or a individual statistic number for a certain player. But with the lockout going on, this is all we have. And Zips is obviously as reputable as they come. So what we've been doing is we've been taking a look at the Zips roster projections for the Cubs 26-man roster in 2022, but they also have the individual statistic projections for each player that we go over. So it's kind of a double dip, and it's kind of fun. Let me preface this as well by saying this could all change. We're on to the outfielders today. We've taken a look at the infielders. On to the outfielders for today. The universal designated hitter, like it or not, is coming to the National League. So this makes things very interesting in terms of how the Cubs outfield will shake out and what designated hitter they will choose to implement during the 2022 season when we get there. Tomorrow's episode is going to take a look at some of the best Cubs designated hitters of all time, and also take a look at some options for Cubs DHs in 2022. It's the DH season. It's coming to the National League, whether we like it or not. So for outfielders 2022, Zips has the starting three as Ian Happ, Rafael Ortega, and Jason Hayward. That's left to right. We'll start with Happ. Strong end of the 2020 shortened season. His strikeout numbers continued to pile last year in 2021. And I've said this a lot. I'm a big Ian Happ fan. I like his athleticism. He runs well. You got to love the power. He's got great pop, but the strikeout issue is an issue, to put it lightly. 27-year-old struck out almost 30% of his at-bats, which is probably who he is at this point. But across a season, that is an extraordinarily high number. With that said, played in 148 games last year, smoked 25 bombs, had 66 ribbies, and was perfect in the field, in the outfield. Perfect fielding percentage. Let that not go unnoticed. That's a big deal. Zips has Happ projected at 148 games again, 25 long balls, 72 ribbies, 240 average, 341 on base percentage. I think I'll take that all day. He takes his walks. He strikes out a lot. He's got good power. You like him in the corner of your outfield. It's just a good fit. So Ian Happ projected Cubs left fielder by Zips right now. Let's move over to center field. Rafael Ortega. He inked a minor league deal before the season last year and played really well in what turned out to be the largest sample size for him at the major league level. He kind of burst onto the scene, right? Hit 291, 360 on base, slugged 463 last year. So that OPS was over 800, 11 taters, 33 ribbies, played in over 100 games. Did you realize that? Saw the bulk of his time starting in center field, logged a 992 fielding percentage out there as well. He presumably will be your go-to guy in center field for the time being. We talked about Brennen Davis a little bit earlier in the show. We may see him at the major league level starting every day in center field. Probably not, but it's possible at some point. But Ortega now penciled in as the guy. Zips has him as a 127-game player, 14 home runs, 55 ribbies, 250 hitter, 320 on base. They don't have a go-to option in center. I mean, Ortega is not your long-term answer, right? But he was very serviceable, to say the least, out there last year. Don't see any reason why you can't count on more of that here in 2022. Scooting over to right field, Jason Heyward, man. He's been a mainstay. I know he's taken a lot of heat about the offensive production at times or lack thereof. Let me tell you this. Cubs do not win a World Series in 2022, in 2016 rather, or maybe 22 also, without Jason Heyward. And I'm not talking about the Rengele speech. The guy is a leader and a huge, huge part of what goes on in that clubhouse. Heyward is going to likely ride out the last 2 years of his contract with the Cubs. It was big money, understood. He's under a full no trade clause, first of all. So unless the Cubs approached him about a potential deal, depending on how the 2022 season goes, to lift that restriction, and also take on a significant portion of the money that they owe him, because I'm sure that would be a caveat in any deal with any team. Heyward's probably a lock to see most of the time in right field and spend the entire year with the Cubs. Zips has him as a 12-homer, 46-ribby guy hitting 243. Hey, you're still getting well above average defense in right field. And again, huge leader. Love to have him aboard. Let's keep cruising. Zips projections. This is fun. Take a look at the Cubs 2022 bench. And this is really what might change the most, depending on how things shake out with who comes in after the lockout ends, free agency-wise, designated hitter-wise, and see how the bottom of this roster, at least position player-wise, ends up. As it stands now, they have Alfonso Rivas, Bodie, Alcantara, Hermosillo, Harold Ramirez, and Yan Gomes as the six-man Cubs bench. Rivas, after Bodie landed on the 10-day DL last year, the first time was called up at the end of August. Pretty much a regular in the lineup through the rest of the season. Small sample size for him. 18 games, just 25 years old, though. Hit 318 with a homer and 3 ribbies. Very intriguing option off the bench, Alfonso Rivas. David Bodie, speaking of him, he's under contract for another 3 years with the Cubs, which I love. I mean, it also has 2 club options on that deal. Very financially friendly deal. He had a horrendous 2021. I mean, you just got to feel for the guy. He hit just a $199. Walks dipped to a career low, way under 10%. Role player is likely what's the best fit for him at this point, but he can play all around the diamond. I love that. Again, another guy with great power. I don't expect him to be a regular in a Cubs 2022 lineup, but I expect him to contribute often because he's so versatile, and I expect a big bounce back year offensively. He's a better player than he was, especially if he's healthy heading into this year. Michael Hermosillo, he showed some pop in the 16 games he played with the Cubs last year. He hit just a $194, sent 3 balls out of the yard while driving in 7. Probably going to be a big part of that bench mob for 2022. Yan Gomes, my personal favorite of the bunch, best backup catcher in the National League by far. Cubs catching tandem with Contreras and Gomes. I've been off about it since they brought in Gomes. Is phenomenal. They needed a veteran. They ran through 1 million catchers last year. Now they've got the Contreras backup. They can spell Wilson, keep his legs fresh. Yan Gomes last year, and I know we've been over this, but spent last season with the Nationals and A's, hit a combined 301, 14 homers, 52 ribbies. You're getting a great defensive caller. You're getting an offensive producer. I love it. He's just an excellent option when Contreras cannot start behind the dish as you look to keep his legs healthy in August and September. More or less, this bench group of Rivas, Bodie, Sergio Alcantara, Hermosillo, Harold Ramirez, Yan Gomes, it's going to change. We are going to see an influx of some roster movement when the lockout ends, free agency returns, and we get to spring training. But this is the Zips idea as of now, and there's some great pieces here. We'll see how all the other pieces kind of fall into place as we progress into the off season, which really should be done by now. But with the lockout, things have gotten a little weird. Speaking of weird, I've got some weird Cubs trivia that you probably did not know about your favorite team. Want to share that with you next. Before we do, football's over for the year, unfortunately, but basketball is full steam for both pro and college hoops. For all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all of your betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news all season long. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, for boxing, for UFC, right to Olympic coverage and information. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. This is Locked On Cubs. We continue next. Welcome back into Locked On Cubs. I'm your host, Andrew Bellison. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Join us on social media, won't you? At Chicago Cubs PA, at Locked On Cubs. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being part of the Locked On Cubs family. Thank you for letting me be a part of the Locked On Cubs family, most importantly. So, Chicago Cubs, charter franchise, such a rich history, so many statistics, so many stories, but I bet you didn't know all of this one. Want to end the show like this today. Check this out. As you probably know, back on September 14th, 2008, Cubs right-hander Carlos Zambrano tossed a no-hitter against the Houston Astros. The game was not played in Texas, nor was it played at Wrigley Field. It was the Cubs' first no-hitter since Milt Pappas in 1972, played in Milwaukee because of the hurricane. So with that gem against Houston, Zambrano, whose nickname was Big Z, became the first pitcher with a last name that starts with Z to throw a no-no. Jordan Zimmerman made it 2 with his no-no for the Nats in 2014, but Big Z was the first. Here's the weirdest part. I touched on it a little bit, the location. Because of Hurricane Ike, the series was relocated with the Astros serving as the home team at Miller Park. As a result, Zambrano's no-no was the first neutral site no-hitter ever. How about that? I did not know that he was the first person with a last name starting with the letter Z to toss a no-no. Zimmerman joined him. Could they be the only two ever? Possibly. Fun trivia there about your favorite ball club. Designated Hitter Talk tomorrow. It's coming to the National League, whether you like it or not. We take a look back at some of the best Cubs DHs and who they might turn to moving forward for that role in 2022. Again, Cubs fans, can't thank you enough for making Locked On Cubs your first listen each and every morning. Now, please make Locked On Bets your second listen. It's your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis from Lee Sterling, it's free and available wherever you get your favorite podcast. Check us out. We're free and available wherever you download your favorite cast too. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, please check out our Locked On Cubs YouTube page. Have a great Tuesday. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. This has been Locked On Cubs. I'm Andrew Bellison. See you guys.